I had Matthew Eldred, who attended UWO from 2000 to 2005, and basically his underlying message: enjoy your time, enjoy the moment, and get involved. A little bit of background: he grew up in Stockbridge, Wisconsin, which is for him apparently called the surfing capital of the world. It's located on the other side of Lake Winnebago, so it's a small town. His graduating class wasn't very large. He mentioned that in his high school, most of his classes were around like 20 students. That in itself, small enough that they didn't even have a football team. He was the youngest of two. He has an older sister that actually attended UWO for a small amount of time before moving on to Marian University. He was a first-generation college student, so his parents didn't go to college. He played soccer, basketball, and baseball all throughout high school. Those are some, sports is a big thing for him through that point in time. Since he was a first-generation college student, I kind of asked him why he chose to come to Oshkosh, obviously, and he said that it wasn't really his parents pushing him to better his education or continue his education. It was more of he did really well in high school, and he kind of he debated doing the Army, not going to college in itself, but he realized with his grades it was kind of a natural progression to go to college. So he ended up at UWO because it wasn't too far from his hometown. It was far enough that he could get away, but close enough that if he needed to get back, he could get back. He graduated with a degree in English. He, how should I say this? I wouldn't want to say he was an average college student, but his experience at UWO, I feel, really all encompasses a lot of the average student in itself. He didn't participate too much on campus in itself. He did intramural sports. Sports were a big thing for him, obviously, which kind of carried over from high school. And he had his point in college where he struggled for a bit. The social scene kind of encompassed him a little bit. He explained that his first semester here, he started off really strong. He actually lived in Donner Hall. He talked about how his roommate was never there because his girlfriend had a place off campus, so pretty much had a room to himself. But once he got comfortable on campus in that second semester, his freshman year, he struggled academically. He kind of said that it came down to an interim class debating whether or not he was going to be put on probation or something like that, and he powered through it and got himself through what he had to do that freshman year. And then he ended up living off campus his sophomore and all throughout the rest of his college career. And through that sophomore year type period, while he struggled a little bit. So it was about a year and a half of time that he kind of not necessarily wasted his time, but reprioritized it less academic. And the one thing he said was he didn't regret doing that in itself. He enjoyed life a little bit more. Yes, it caused him to be here a little bit longer, but he enjoyed his time. Funny thing with when he lived on Cherry Street, he actually, like a lot of stories I've heard, he met his future wife. He actually recalled the whole story of it being like a Sunday. Him and his friends were watching football or something like that, and group of girls that usually frequent at her house showed up, and they had an extra girl with them, and ended up being her. So once he actually met her and started hanging out, they would do frequent walks at High Cliff State Park, and he also worked throughout college, which he kind of explained once he got that job. He realized that he needed to reprioritize things, so he focused a little less on the social aspect of things, and focused more on grades as well as maintaining his job. He originally started part-time, and eventually his junior year he went full-time for his junior and senior and super senior year. So all in all, he really enjoyed his time on campus. I asked him what big events really happened on campus. He couldn't recall anything really happening in the early 2000s. So I asked him all encompassing 9/11 for 2001, kind of, big thing he remembers is that time period, he remembers exactly where he was, what he was doing, and the all over tone and feel of how things were on campus and in the community. It was very kind of eye-opening, but everyone stuck together and stuck through it. So yeah. Matthew is now, actually after graduating, he talked about how he didn't even actually attend his own graduation ceremony. He was working. So he's kind of said how his mother came down for his graduation and took him out to lunch during his lunch break at work and kind of talked about how she was very proud of him and stuff like that for accomplishing his graduating and whatnot. But he worked while he was in college at Sam's Luggage Shop over at the outlet mall. He worked there until they actually foreclosed. He worked his way up from just actually being a manager there for a little while, and then he was kind of cherry picked from Sam's Luggage when they were going under to go work at a bank. And this lady who he frequently gave the deposits to for the Sam's, he kind of picked him up and said, "Hey, come work for me." So he got into banking, worked at Chase Bank for 7 years, and he spent the past year and a half at Prospera Credit Union. So he hasn't actually left Oshkosh at all. But it wasn't until he went to Prospera Credit Union that he finally got back on campus and saw the huge changes in the university just since 2005. And he was very impressed with how things are now on campus and said, "Yeah, pretty lucky to have what we have." He's happily married with 2 kids with his college sweetheart that he met. Kind of his advice for college students, I'm going to let him, I don't have it typed out there, but I'm going to let him say himself, actually.
I think just enjoy your time, enjoy the moment. I think just get involved in a lot of things because you never know when, the people that you're working with or that that you meet when you're getting involved in things when you're going to cross their paths again.
So, yeah, it's kind of one thing he looked at, just be involved, a little more involved than he feels he was on campus.